Okay, so we're going to start with the word for, and then we're going to declare an integer, because we have to have some type of counter to figure out how many times we're going to run through a task. So we have to start out with declaring a variable. So it's going to be an integer, so int. And a lot of times, for loops always use the variable I. So our for loop is established with the word for. We have an integer, and then we're just going to set it to 0. So that's our first, like how we're first setting up like our counter. It's going to start at 0, and then we're going to run through this until we hit a certain number. So our I starts at 0. We need a semicolon. We are now then going to call upon that variable, I, and we're going to say when I is less than 10, we're going to jump out of this for loop. So the first part is initializing or starting our loop, our process of repeating. Our second part inside the parentheses tells us how much we do this and sets a limit. So anytime I becomes less than 10. And then as we go through this loop, so now I need another semicolon. Oops, sorry. I highlighted I is less than 10. And then as we go through this, we have to have a semicolon. And then we do I plus plus. And that means every time it runs through this loop, it adds 1 to I. So that way, it starts with I is 0. It goes through the loop, adds 1 to I. So now I becomes 1. It checks if I is less than 10. Yes, it does. Yes, it is. So then it does whatever inside of our for loop. And then it adds another 1 to I. And then it checks to see if it's less than 10. And then it does the instructions again. Okay. So this is the beginning of our for loop. We have the word for, open paren. We initialize or start our for loop by saying I is equal to 0. We have a semicolon, I is less than 10, semicolon, I plus plus, and then an opening curly bracket, and then hit enter. And then this is where we have our directions. Like what do we want to repeat over and over again from 0 to like 10 times? Let's say we want to have a variable where we add 1 to it every time and then we print it out. Okay, so let's say we have a variable, so let's declare a variable quick. Let's put it outside the for loop and make it an int my results. And we'll set that to 0. Okay. Then inside our for loop, so inside this opening and closing curly bracket there, we're going to keep adding to my results. So my results plus plus. So every time it goes through this loop, guys, it's going to add 1 to my results. Then also, maybe in here we want to print out what my results is every single time, just to see if it's working. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do a system.out.println, and I'm going to print my results. So what this is doing, we are first establishing a variable called my results. It starts at 0. Then our program says, hey, we are going to make a loop or a set of instructions that we are going to do probably 10 times. Starts at 0, it's got to be less than 10, so it's going to loop through. So it goes through this loop. It says, okay, we're starting out. I is like our counter. I is like the person sitting next to us going, okay, 1, 2, 3, how many times you've gone through this. As it goes through this loop, it adds 1 to results, and then prints it out. So our first one should be results. We're going to add 1 to results, so then it should be 1, and it's going to print out the number 1. Then it kicks itself out of the loop, and it comes back in, and it says, all right, now I is equal to 1. We're going to add 1 more to results. Results is now going to be 2. We're going to print out 2. So let's see if that is in fact what it does. Do you guys have this?
Yeah.
Is that the voice of the people?
Yep, it is.
Okay. All right, I'm going to run this and let's see. It should print out some numbers for us. I'm going to scroll this up. And yep, there it goes. So 1, 2, 3, 4. It prints out 1 through 10. Does that make sense of what it's printing out? So my results first starts at 0, and then when it enters the loop, it automatically adds 1 to it. So my results is now equal to 1 because it's adding 1. That's what that plus plus is. It's adding 1 to my results, which now makes it 1. It prints out 1. Then it goes back to the top of the loop. It adds 1 again to my results. So now my results should be 1 plus 1 is 2, and it prints out 2. And it's going to do that as long as I is less than 10. So that's the counter. So for example, guys, if you change this part for the loop, let's say you want it to print out 1 through 20. You would change that I is less than, you would do less than 20. And run. And now you would get 1 through 20.
Oh, it's generated them procedurally. Yeah.
Now we could change the way wherever it starts. That's fine. We could do a problem where maybe we want to sum up all the integers from 3 to 79. And then do one final statement that does that, prints them out as it's going through the loop, and then does one final sum. So we can do that. We can do that here. So let's do this. I am going to erase this so we don't get it confused. And here, I'm going to make a comment so you guys know what we're going to do. We are going to sum up all ints from 3 to 79. Okay. All right, so let's first declare some integers. Okay. So I'm first going to just declare an int, and I'm going to say j is equal to 0. And I'm going to have another integer that the sum is going to be equal to 0 as well. Those are going to be my first variables that I declare. Okay, next, let's start our for loop. So for. Now, because we already declared j up here, I don't have to declare the variable inside the for loop. But according to my problem, I want to start with the number 3. So I'm going to say in my for loop, j is going to be equal to 3. It's going to start at 3. And then we have to make our stop conditional. When is it going to stop? So I need a semicolon. J is going to be less than 79. And I'm going to run through, and I'm going to keep running through. So then J is going to be 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way to 79 with that. And that's what that J++ does. It just keeps adding every time we go through the loop. Need an opening curly bracket, and I'm going to hit return, and it closes that for loop for me. And then here we're going to add. We're going to find our sum. So we're going to do sum equals sum plus J. It's going to find the sum of our numbers. So remember, sum first starts at 0. And it's going to do, 0 plus 3 is 3. And it's going to, that will be our first amount. So every time it's going to add the numbers between 3 and 79. And then, so let's system print that. System out print line. I'm going to print out the sum. So every time it runs through this loop, it's going to print it out. So this, I'm going to make a comment here to tell you, it's going to show the progress as we go through the loop. So it's going to show us the progress as we're going through of adding it up. And at the very end, once it's outside the loop, I'm going to print out the final sum. So I'm going to go outside this loop. So this is the loop. I'm going to go outside of it, and I'm going to do a system out print line. I'm going to say final sum is, and I'm going to add that sum to it, and then a semicolon. Okay, so again, this is going to add up all the integers from 3 to 79. I first start out with J equals 0 and my sum equals 0. I then say, hey, I'm going to loop through this so that it goes from 3 to 79. So I'm going to now set J to be set at 3. So it starts at the number 3. And it's going to run through this act of adding up the numbers until J is less than 79. And as it's going through, it's going to keep adding. So it's going to do 3 plus 4 plus 5. It's going to add them all up, print it out, and then it's going to have a final sum. All right. Should we run this? Sure. Okay, I'm running it. Ooh. It's going to be a long one.
Done there. All right. Okay.
You're good?
Yeah.
Okay. So you notice as it runs through, it first prints out 3 because we start at 3. So it does 0 plus 3. The sum is 3. Prints it out. Then it comes back up here. J is now 4. Sum is 3. 4 plus 3 is 7. So it prints out 7. Okay, J is now 5. Sum is 7. 5 plus 7 is 12. Prints out 12. And yep, that in fact does print out 12. And then it keeps going on. So it's very, very long. But it's a kind of cool thing. So you don't have to keep on doing multiple adding. It does it for us. Ooh, somebody has a squeaky wheel or something. Ah, that thing is loud.
Yeah, it's just like I get all this fun. So, Everybody have that? Everybody good? Oh, you make sure everybody's exactly. That's good. That's the only thing. Chocolate sandwich.
How we doing, guys?
I think everybody's got it. You got it. No errors.
Excellent. Good, good, good. Okay. Let's see. We can try something else. Let's do okay, let's try let's do, I don't want to do a nested loop yet. That's tough. Okay, let's do this one. Let's declare two variables again. So I'm going to delete this, if you guys wouldn't mind. Oops. Okay, so if we wanted to find some type of value of something, we could do, like, for example, if we want to find the value of some integer, for each time we go through the loop or at the end, it will depend on where we're asking that information to come out. So let's declare some variables here. I'm going to have an int, and I'm going to do we'll do R and J. So I'm just declaring them right now. Okay, so then let's do our for loop. For. And because I've already declared J, I'm going to use that in my for loop. I don't need to declare it here, but I just need to use it now. J is going to start at 1. So J equals 1. Semicolon. We are now going to say J is going to be less than 10. And now instead of going up once every time. So for example, you know how we did J++, so it would run through this, and basically J would go, okay, you know, J is 1, J is 2, J is 3 times, 4 times, you know, that's how many times do we go through it. We can change that on the interval as far as how we're going to proceed through the loop, what increments we're going to go through J. We can change this and make J equals J times 2. Okay. So it's going to increase J by 2, by a multiple of 2 every time it runs through that. So I'm going to have a curly bracket for my for loop, and then let's have it do something. I'm going to say my results are going to equal, R equals 2 times J. And then we can print out what R is. Okay, so if you want, we can print out here. And Here, sorry guys, somebody's at my door. If you guys can give me a second here, I can unlock it. And we can go from there. All right, so then let's print this out for us, okay? Give me a second here. Of course, my internet is bad. So we'll do a system out at print. And we should be good. Print line. And, sorry, my dog's gonna go crazy barking. And then let's print out R, okay? So we have our for loop. We have I starts at 1, J is less than 10. Let's run that. And then here we go. So if J starts at 1, we're going to print out R, right? So 1 times 2 is 2, so it prints out R. So my first number should be 2. Okay. And then remember, now J is 1. So now J is now going to be, J times 2 is 2. So now we're jumping up to 2 as far as that round. That's why there's not 9 spaces. There's only 1, 2, 3, 4.
I got them all on the same line.
Oh, do you have just print instead of print line?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
See,
guys, and that might be, just so you know too, that will be a question on the exam as well. Like, what would be the difference between print and print line? Always good things. Okay, so questions about this? You're all good?
How many tests are we going to have?
Probably 2. For the non-seniors. Nope. For non-seniors, you'll have 2. So you'll have 1 on Wednesday and then 1 at the end. And then seniors, you only have 1. Yep. So. All right, guys, for the rest of the hour, this is what I want you guys to do. And it's not going to be for points, but it will be, I'd like you guys to submit it. So if you guys are all in this practice page thing, I want you guys to still submit it. So somewhere at the top, so you can get rid of, or you can keep what you have, but at the top under your public static void main, make a comment. This is what I want you guys to do for the rest of the hour, and we'll talk about it on Monday. Write a for loop that will print the numbers 3, 6, 12, and 24. So it might take some reasoning with math. Like, what are some things that you would have to get 3, 6, 12, and 24?
Squaring the numbers.
And then you can go from there, okay? So that's going to be your assignment for the rest of the hour. If you don't get it, don't worry about it, but I do want you guys to try your best to get through it, okay? And I'll talk to you on Monday.
Thank you.
All right.